Hey guys, this will be video 2 for the how to design build a hollow body flying V, and sometimes use Stuart McDonald templates. Might talk about them a little bit in the future, um, or in the latter part of this video, but also out of Honduran Mahogany. And why Honduran Mahogany? Well, because I had some spare mahogany left over from a Honduran guitar that I built, the first line V that I've already talked about. But that's not the main reason. The main reason is Honduran Mahogany is just an exceptional wood to work with. And I had forgotten because I've been working with the Carina for so long on the Explorer guitars, and I had forgotten what a phenomenal wood this is as far as tone. I need to stop, but yeah, I'll do some tap tone stuff in a little while, but nonetheless, this thing is unbelievably resonant. So we'll cover some of that stuff in a little while. But what all I got done since the last video was I got the output jack location cut. I got the tailpiece anchors, not the anchors, I got the tailpiece studs installed temporarily. I have not pressed the anchors in because I wanted to verify alignment and all that jazz since this guitar had been sitting for so long. And not that it changed, but I just want to make certain that there wasn't anything funny that maybe I needed to shift these a 32nd of an inch or a 64th of an inch or something like that. But they're not. They're perfectly true, so I'm happy with that. So I could have gone ahead and installed the anchors, but it's always wise to work your way to the finish line. But the ABR1 studs, I got them in as well. It was a very simple process. And I won't talk about that because I'll end up spending 25 minutes talking about how to put studs in. The main thing you want to do is just make certain that you protect your threads so that they function well, and you don't have any marred threads or anything. And when you can do that, you got a good job. And also you want to make certain that they are truly perpendicular on both axes and whatnot. Very true. And probably one of the most important things is that, take it all the way down, is that when you do install your ABR1, that there's no bind. You don't want any bind at all. If you have bind, well, once you get the string tension on there and you're trying to do adjustment, it'll be exponentially difficult to move the bridge if it has a little bit of bind in those studs. So it should be able to be removed with ease. And what else did I do? Just did some sanding and some initial kind of not polish work, but come in with the steel wool, like a double alt steel wool, and just kind of worked it down a little bit to start making the determination of just how slick of a finish I want to put on this guitar. And I have no intention of taking this one up to a flawless Ferrari finish. I want this one to, have a little bit of a glow to it, but I want this to look like it's 50 or 60 years old. I'm not going to relic it, but I might do a little bit more of the um, um, steel wool work, maybe round over the edges a little bit. But I just really want this thing to feel like a handmade guitar, and even look like a handmade guitar or an old guitar. And now I'm not going to come in here with a bronze tip, bronze bristle brush and start relicking it, as I said. But the Honduran Mahogany has a natural open grain anyway, and if you brush your lacquer primer coats or sealer coats, it'll have some really beautiful finish in it. But then when you really turn it and look at it in the light, you'll see some of the beautiful natural grain in the wood, and that's reminiscent of like your old vintage guitars that have sit in an attic or under a sofa, or for 30, 40 years. That grain kind of open and closes from expansion and contraction, and it just makes it look more handmade or vintage. So anyway, So let me back up and punt here, and let me do a flyby starting from the headstock, and then we'll. There's really nothing to see there. The only thing I've done there is just kind of a little bit of initial sand work. I think I took it up to 1500 grit on the headstock overlay, but I still got work to do there. Now, the fretboard, I did spend quite a bit of time working on the fretboard, making certain that it was obviously perfectly radiused, 12-inch radius, and also that I had all of my mother of pearl perfectly scar-free from where I was doing the initial radius work with the Stuart McDonald radiusing block, because it'll have a tendency to leave some longitudinal scarring in it, and you've got to work that out with some 400 grit, and then up to like 600 grit, 800 grit, then up to like a 1500 grit, where you're actually really doing some beautiful finish work on your mother of pearl, because it's a lot easier to do it now before you get the frets in and realize you got some issues. And also, this needs to be just slick as glass. This has not been sealed yet or oiled or anything like that, uh, but it's ready. It's ready for fret work and all the finish work. And then already done, kind of flybys, but I got the ABR studs in and ABR one studs in, and they're nice and true, perfectly perpendicular on both axes, perpendicular and the longitudinal axis. Now the anchor, I have not pressed the anchors in yet, but I did drill the initial location holes with I think a 1/4 inch or maybe slightly over a 1/4 inch, and just went ahead and installed these actual studs temporarily, so that if I wanted to, I could go ahead and string it up. And if I had frets on it, I could go ahead and string it up and start playing it, even like that before the studs were installed or the anchors were installed. But you do want to install anchors later on. But nonetheless, when you're installing your anchors, then you can drill to install your ground wire as you're pressing the treble side tailpiece stud, anchor in. You make certain that wire's in there before you press that in, and then you have an internally grounded guitar, uh, and it makes for an exceptional ground. But still a little bit rough. There's still a few things I might want to work out, but nonetheless, I like it because it has that just real vintage vibe. And this is the first time I've worked with the celluloid uh, binding, tortoise binding, and it was pretty difficult to work with, but man, it's really beautiful. So even with the Honduran mahogany as well, kind of has a. I think Martin guitars use the celluloid a lot. Maybe Gibbs, maybe all of them did, or the tortoise binding is what I'm talking about. It's really beautiful. It's really cool. Um, I was very tempted. I almost went with the parchment. I almost went with the parchment on the binding, top and bottom, but I was just scared. I was scared this was going to be too stark, even if I went with like a deeper cream. But I'm sure it would have been really nice with even your parchment or a bone, or which this is cream from All Parts, which this is actually my favorite binding uh, on my Les Paul replicas, which they are Honduran mahogany on the sides and the back. So yeah, obviously this is really beautiful. This would have been beautiful, but I just think it was cool to do the tortoise, because it's already as rare as you know what. Why not keep it that way with the tortoise binding, and kind of be arrogant and show, what you can pull off, because that's some pretty tricky binding work. And I'll just leave it at that. It's not easy. Yeah, but it worked out really well. This is book matched. I mentioned that in the last video that the back is book matched. It is book matched, but the back and the top are from the exact same board. I bought one board that was like 10 feet long and 10 inches wide, and I built, I think, 4 flying V's and something like 5, if not 7 necks out of that one board. And I had all of this where I was, you know, building all those guitars. I kept having this remnant material left over, and I was able to book match the back, you know, by opening it up. This piece that I had was thicker, but then these top two pieces were thinner, and they are not book matched. But I did a real good job of trying to make certain that if they came out of the board, they came out of the board, you know, in the same orientation. In other words, not upside down, because you want the chatoyancy. And this is ribbon. This has ribbon. That you should have seen the necks that I built. They had one of the necks had unbelievable ribbon, and a couple of the others was fairly good, but one neck had unbelievable ribbon in it. And so I was able to get the ribbon on this side. And I don't know if this one has ribbon on this side, but that's the beauty about working with the Honduran mahogany. It's just you never ever know what you're going to really get, but it's typically fairly vivid and just light as a feather. So okay, and as I mentioned, I got the output jack cut in. I may have mentioned that in this video because this is the third time I've done the video. I keep getting so long-winded and I keep stopping and erasing. But if I already mentioned it, I'm being redundant. I don't think I did mention this. I had initially considered going with I typically always go with the Telecaster machined aluminum that recesses in. It's not the stamped steel plate cup. But I changed gears and I decided to go with more of the vintage correct plate as what they would have gone with if they installed if they had have installed, you know, this on the side or something like down here. That's probably what they would have gone with, something like that, kind of like the Explorer. But since they were doing the poker chip up on the top, because you know, people back in that era, they weren't running wireless or anything like that. But my design came from, as I mentioned in the last video, working around so many guys that are session players or actually touring players. You know, they can get around this. This is fun. It's not that big of a deal if your output jack was there. But I just thought, man, this is a brilliant idea to have this right here and then plug in. I'm actually going to mock it up in a little while and show you with the strap what I'm talking about. So I need you to stop talking about it. Just do what I'm, put my money where my mouth is and just do it. But nonetheless, I just elected to go with the plate. And if you go with parchment or vintage white, you know, cream or something like that, pickup surrounds, then I would recommend going with the cream down here as well, or the parchment down here as well. And I think that'd be really beautiful. And quite frankly, there's now I wouldn't Mickey Mouse it. If you ran the black pickup rings, I wouldn't go with the white on the side because the only way I would go with the white on the side here is if it had a parchment pick guard on it. But see, it doesn't need the pick guard since I've machined it as a hollow body. And even all of my paint grade Flying V's that I built years back, I was coming in from the back side with a real cool control cavity. And no sense talking about that, but a very nice thought out control cavity that's machined in this area right here. Excuse me. And then it didn't require that I did a pick art. I never put any sort of pick art on any of the Flying V's that I built, replicas, because some of them, I think 2, if not 3, were actual Delmar drum wrap. I did one that was a gold sparkle, and I did one that was a Christmas tree red sparkle, and man, it was stunning. It was a jet black guitar with Christmas. Well, both of them were, all of them were those two were black guitars with Honduran mahogany stained necks exposed, and then with the gold sparkle. So it was really cool. You didn't need a pick guard, but you needed to have the ability to come up here and do really vivid, you know, uh, knobs in your atop your sparkle top. And digress there. So what else should I talk about? So I already talked about the anchors and all that jazz. I'm not sure if I talked about the sanding preparation in this video yet. I already spent too much time talking about it in the past videos, but what I did do is hit it with 220 just very briefly, then immediately went to a 400 grit, then immediately went to steel wool and steel wool the whole guitar. And if I'm being redundant, I apologize, but I got to make certain that I cover this, because this is where you really get your true handmade vintage looking guitar, where you come in and you do all this with the grain of the wood, and you're just working all this down with steel wool, and you're definitely wanting to keep this clean, because the lacquer will build up. The lacquer will build up in this just like it would in sandpaper. So don't keep grinding that old dusty lacquer into your job. Keep your steel wool. I'm sure you saw that, or if you didn't, there's dust everywhere. But the steel wool gets really dusty, but nonetheless, it's beautiful once you come in and take a cloth with some mineral spirits on it, uh, and start identifying what your wood is going to do. And that's what Honduran mahogany and celluloid binding will do. If I wanted to, clear coat this guitar up to like a Ferrari finish, then this will give you an idea temporarily, because it dries really fast. The mineral spirits dries down and gets dull very quickly. But very quickly you can ask yourself, would I be willing to spend another 3 weeks spraying several thin coats, wet sanding, letting it dry, and then coming back a week or so later and spraying a few more really thin coats, and then letting it cure for several weeks, and then wet sand it again all the way up to like 3,000 grit, and then hand wax it or polish it, and then that's what your guitar would look like right there. And some people might like that, but I honestly think you end up spending more time doing your real high quality finish work than you do just building the guitar. And if you're just building the guitar to play rock star in the basement, or either a tour with, from going from the basement to the bars and all that jazz, then I say just take it up to the steel wool, and then maybe polish it a little bit, but nonetheless just let's see what the top looks like. Just have a really beautiful guitar, and candy cane is really awesome in that piece. Sorry for the craziness in the video. It's kind of hard to do this. And as soon as I get this side done, the other side's beginning to dry down, so I'll do this very quickly and we'll see what it looks like. Beautiful guitar. Should be in. Try not to breathe in the camera. Let's see what it looks like. Quarter sawn neck. It gets a little bit rift in the heel, but this thing is definitely a true quarter sawn. Sorry, I'm wasting time. I'm also trying not to drop the guitar. Okay, so that would give you an idea what it would look like. And if there's anything more important to talk about than what I'm about to talk about, I can't think of it. But when you're building a guitar like this, do not tint your clear coat at all. Never do that, because in the event you started out trying to achieve a really old look, a vintage look right out of the gate, once you get that guitar built, you might realize that you want to shape that neck some more. And now you won't really be able to unless you strip all of that material off because it's an artificial finish. But see, every bit of this is just clear nitrocellulose lacquer with no tint, and I say zero tint. In the event I needed to, if I damaged this and I had to repair it, then when I repair it and do the nitro, it's not going to be a problem to cover up. But if you came in and started shaping this neck down, now you're going to be chasing your tail trying to get this raw Honduran mahogany area to match this artificial color over here. And honestly, good luck because you're really not going to be able to pull it off. It's going to kind of have a two-tone look to it. But with this guitar right here, um, you know, you can shape it. Now, if it's set in the sun for a few years or something like that, and it got really dark, then someone came in and did some shape work on the neck, they might have to wait 6 months to a year for it to ever blend in and see. But it would be, you'd have to really restrict yourself from trying to create some sort of artificial finish, because the same thing would happen 6 months later. It would just continue to reveal itself. Okay, so just always work with a beautiful wood, and then you don't have to worry about doing a lot of or any. You don't have to worry about doing anything artificial at all. Okay. All right. So there you have it. It's a beautiful, beautiful guitar. And the next move will be. Let's do a little bit of tap tone. See if I can get this off the chest. That's what I was talking about. It's just as resonant right here. There's no dead spots or anything. So it's going to be a vocal little guitar, very vocal. All right, that's probably a really beautiful picture right there. So let me do this, because I might be able to capture one of these pictures where it's just sitting on the wildcat fur. I'll get my hand off the guitar, maybe capture a nice image there. Yeah, beautiful guitar. All right, let me check the time. 23 minutes. I guess I'll just do some of this. Now, I really need to spend about 5 or 10 minutes mopping the guitar up. So the only thing I will do, okay, oh, I know what I did not do. I got some mineral spirits open right here. This will give you an idea. Now, that's just shows how vivid the fretboard would be, but that's without any sort of stain on it. And I definitely will be coming in here and darkening it a little bit, but nonetheless, you can see how straight the grain is. That's what I really wanted to do, is show how straight the grain is on the. I hope that's picking up. Probably just for one brief second there, it picked up, showed the straight grain. That fretboard is perfectly quarter sewn, and you can kind of see the similarity there. That's a 1961 Gretsch 6120 Brazilian rosewood bridge. They look a lot alike. This is Pa Ferro, and I believe a guy. Well, I know he did. I think his name was Marco. Marco chimed in. He's from Brazil, and I believe he said it's pronounced Pafijo. Yeah, Pafijo. I believe that's the way you pronounce it. In Portuguese. All right, so let's do a little bit of a, all right, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull this cover and look in this hole and see if there's anything I need to talk about before I lose my screwdriver. Here it is. Or before I do a pause and mock up the guitar, because I'm gonna mock the guitar up pretty much complete and before the video ends. That way you can kind of see what it looks like. I don't think there's anything to talk about here, because in video 1A from April of 2023, I went into extensive detail talking about, you know, how this thing's built, and even before the top was glued down. So, but this will kind of give you an idea of, you know, just some of the machine work to allow it to receive the shorter shaft potentiometer. See, typically I go with the long shaft potentiometer, but if you went with a long shaft potentiometer and left all this really thick, I don't believe you would be able to install the potentiometer. I think you would get in a bind. I'm almost 100% certain you would get in a bind before you were able to stand it up. So I machined this one to receive the shorter shaft, and that would make for a much easier installation of a wiring harness. Because when I initially started building this guitar, I had always intended on selling it, but I wasn't certain if I was going to sell it with the harness completely finished or just ship it to someone and let their guitar tech, you know, design their DP/DT switching, or either fill that with Mahogany and not do the DP/DT switches or any of that jazz, you know. So nonetheless, I was just leaving it open enough so that it would be very, very easy for someone to do that work. Okay, so let me pause, and then what I'm going to do is install this output jack here with a black plate, and then in the event I haven't already gone across it 3 or 4 times, if you were to go with the bone or cream or parchment, then I would recommend going with the bone or cream or parchment on that plate as well. So let me pause, and I'll do a little bit of assembly, and then come back and talk about it as it starts going back together. Okay, the cool thing about this design, as I mentioned, uh, if you're running a wireless system, then I think it's going to be really comfortable and very functional, whether you're standing or sitting down. And I can say that with absolute confidence because every 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 one of them that I've built, this is exactly how I built them. Okay, should be able to hold on to that. So, and then obviously you have a custom-made cable that just goes into your wireless pack. And then I'm telling you, you might think, oh man, that's got to be hell on your right. Like you don't feel it. It's amazing. Even in the narrow-bodied ones that I did, you just didn't feel it. Now that was definitely when I was running the more recessed cup, though, the Telecaster cup. So with this, the flat one, the more vintage flat, you might have to run a flat profile 90 degree. And then, of course, if you didn't like that, it's just a simple matter of having someone drill a hole right here and put your poker chip up there, and then whatever, you know, color it is you go with your pickup rings, then just do the same thing. And you know, if you're black down here and black up there, then probably do a black round poker chip and leave this one connected if you wanted to, but then just daisy chain over and plug in either way. So that might be an idea. Have 2 different output jack locations. Okay, so, and as far as your spacing up here, see you have plenty of room. So, and it's nice, it's out of the way. And I'm telling you, it's amazing. This guitar does not headstock dive. and that's very rare for a flying V. Most of the flying Vs, you know, they have the really enormous headstock, which I just don't understand, which was completely unnecessary. And then, you know, because the more weight you can carve off the headstock, the better. And as far as alleviating headstock, especially if you're going to mount your shoulder strap button location at the probably the 20th fret. I mean, that's amazing. That's what I mentioned about this. The design is not very not very well thought out with that respect. But they didn't really have any choice because where else could you put it? And as I'd mentioned, a lot of guys I've seen, they would move the strap button down to that location right there as far out as they could get it. But I think what I would do before I did that, I would come down here and I would put some sort of weight down here on where the cable goes in. Anyway, I shouldn't have brought that up. All right, let me pause again, and I'm going to continue with the mock-up. We're going to go ahead and, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. There's no sense in pausing. This won't take but just a moment. I'm going to show you how your reasoning behind not putting these anchors in just yet, because see, these two studs up here, they're real simple to relocate, whether you got your scale a little too short or a little too long, or either if you're off a little bit to the treble side or the bass side. Those are pretty simple to remove and put a little stick in there, epoxy a stick in, and then relocate. These are brutal. If you have to relocate these because of a centering issue, that's a nightmarish repair. So, if you're building your first guitar, let's just put them in temporarily. And this is layout string for installing a Bigsby. Let me just get it loaded up first. Get my camera. It's just a real nice string. You could use a fishing line, like a heavyweight fishing line would be fine, because all we're doing here is assessing what I always call the trapezoidal path. Okay, so basically, I'm just holding on to it down here, and then get it in the slots, and then obviously you'll need to have the nut installed, but I'll just do a quick flyby, which it's a given. What we're doing, we're just down in the slots, and also you can look at well, you should have already engineered that. I don't even know why I brought that up. All right, where's the nut location? Or, I mean the nut. So we're going with the tusk nut. See, these are pre-slotted tusk. And I mentioned going with this one because if you wanted to put a vibramate on it and then a B5 Bigsby, the tusk nut really is nice for doing any Bigsby work. And I had made the statement that this up here, oh, better be careful, that'll fall off in the floor. All right. I had mentioned that this was I got a little gnat. This was just paint. I forgot, I did do a maple veneer on this headstock, and I cut that maple veneer before I did all this final work. When I was gluing the fretboard down, I actually glued it with the nut in, so that's why I've got such an incredible fit right there. Okay, I'll try to do this on camera and try to show it. I guess I could just go through the yeah, this would probably be easier. I apologize that I'm not on camera probably, but I'm just trying to figure some way to get this through the headstock. and so that I can then kind of show it on the camera. Having trouble getting it through the tuner locations. But this is the kind of stuff that I have never seen anybody talk about on video if building a custom guitar, because this basically right here is the entire guitar. I don't know how the hell I'm gonna do this and not make a fool out of myself. Basically, I'm just you know, holding it on the back, and what I am doing with this right here. The other way you could do it, just put the tuners on it and put a couple of strings on it, obviously. But all I'm doing here is assessing the offset, the width of the nut, and the width of the 23rd fret location, which is the end of the fretboard. I am assessing how much space I have atop the E string, the low E string, and atop and below the high E string. And with this fretboard right here, if I wanted to, I could shave a little bit off of both sides. If I wanted to narrow my trapezoidal path a little bit, I've got plenty of room to do. I'll try to get this in the camera. I don't think it's going to show. I can do it with this guitar, but look, just sighting down it from the nut location all the way down, right now the dimensions is identical. The offset dimension here and the offset dimension there, it's identical. So it's really okay to just leave it right where it is, because by the time I come in with after I do my fret work, then I roll in. This is not the width atop the frets. The frets are going to come in a little bit. That's what's going to give that beautiful, very comfortable jazz guitar feel, where it's a rolled neck. It's a soft C that rolls in. And you've heard people talking about that. Oh, wow, if you can get one that's rolled in, they're so much more comfortable, especially if you're the type of player that puts your thumb over the top, which I'm not. But nonetheless, that's how you start doing your layout. And then if you discover an issue, well, wow, look how quickly that came off. Now you can come up here and start making the changes accordingly, and then pick this up again and just repeat and rinse until you find out what it is you need to do. And fortunately, if you have really good templates on the front end, and you're ahead of the curve on the front end, you'll just be assembling it on the tail end of the job. So let me do just that. I'm going to pause, install the tuners, and then I might put a couple of strings on it just to hold it from falling apart. But I'm not going to string up the whole guitar because I don't even have the frets in the thing, and that would be kind of silly looking. And then we'll go from there. Forgot to cover something. In the last video, I showed this template up on the guitar, and I think I might have just had bamboo skewers through the thing. But long story short, let me see if I can redeem myself. Okay, I had mentioned that, maybe this was a 25-inch scale. When I was holding the template atop the body, I did not have any of that studs stuff in there, and it was angled down, therefore forcing it to be really, really short up here. Sorry, I shouldn't have even brought this up. But where I'm going with this, the end of that location, that's the 16th fret. And because Stuart McDonald, their fretboards are 24.563 or something like that, the scale. And I did an authentic, historically accurate 24 3/4. I had to move my ABR1 locations in to accommodate an authentic, historically accurate 24 3/4 inch scale. This template right here is not actually historically accurate. It's short, which accommodates the fretboard that they machine in-house and sell. That might be uh, why this company allowed them to do that. That might have been the stipulation. Hey, as long as you don't do an accurate 24 3/4 inch scale, then we're fine. I have no idea about that. I may be completely wrong. All I know is when I build mine, I always accommodate a handmade fretboard, which is authentically 24 3/4 inch. Okay. But I actually extend them about a 16th of an inch because that allows me to make certain that I don't run the risk of getting too low in the ABR1 with all the saddle locations. All right, now let me pause and I'm going to put it together and then we'll go from there. Okay, I'll do a quick mock-up with it with the black knobs, which looks really good if you have the black plate. And then if you go with, that would look really cool, especially if you went with open humbuckers that were double blacks or zebras. That would look really cool. That would be a pretty sharp looking guitar. Um, I love the zebra. If I'm running open, I just love the look of the reverse zebras. And so anyway, take a look at that. And it's a pretty cool little guitar. And that's your double pole, double throw. I've already covered this in the past video. That would be a double pole, double throw. That would be the double pole, double throw for the neck position, and then for the bridge position, that's your three-way. In case you guys don't know about guitars, that's your three-way selector, which you toggle between the neck pickup or both, or just the bridge by toggling down. So, but most of you guys watching this video probably already know that. So, try to get my hands out of the way. I'm really bad about always having my hand in the way. The reason I'm doing this is because I might use one of these shots as the thumbnail. All right, so let me pause. I'll put the tuners on it, and then we'll go from there. Okay, should be able to finish the video here fairly soon. No major change there. And I've already kind of gone across this in the last video, so there's really nothing to see. Yeah, the only thing different is in video 1A, I had the black tape still on the truss channel hole. So I always do that just to, once someone removes the little bell cover. See, the cool thing about this is the bell cover, even though I'm using the double adjustable truss rod, once this cover goes on there, it looks very close to historically accurate. Even though my headstock is a little bit smaller in scale, it's such a better design because the actual authentic headstock is so big, the E string flares out way too far, and then the E string on the both E strings flare out way too far, and I know there's a binding right there, but with my design, you can see how close and straight the E string is there. It still flares, but then the high E, minimal flare, and then by the time you get to the A and the B string, they're already beginning to come in. But even the D and the G string, they still flare just a little bit, just enough to be really beautiful and tasteful and show that whomever designed this headstock knew exactly what they were doing. And that's not me being arrogant, that's just me making a statement that I did. I knew exactly what I was doing, and it was a very intentional move so that the fan, F-A-N, the fan of all six strings was very beautiful and very balanced after it gets strung up. And then obviously once your truss cover goes on there, it looks like a historically accurate guitar. and just works out really well. But I think it's cool when you remove that cover and you see the Honduran mahogany in there. Try to flip this over without anything falling apart. I don't think there's anything that'll fall off if I turn it over. I've already shown this in the last video, but I didn't get a very good close-up of this. Oh, this is actually very important because from the standpoint of spacing, even though my headstock is a little bit smaller, it's still very much to scale. You know, and when I say scale, it still is roughly the same distance between those two locations as it is on the historically accurate guitar. It's just that it's a little bit more narrow right here and brings everything in a little bit. I'm having to hold that tail piece on there so it doesn't fall off and scratch it. All right, and then what I'll do is go ahead and kind of show you the. I need to get an image of this. Is the main reason I'm doing this part of the video. Oh, put it on upside down. But if you're building your own guitar, regardless of what it is, you can kind of glean a little bit of information just by reading between the lines, and should really help you out. So you can kind of see it come together, and even though it's based on the 58 footprint, you know, some of the modern amenities are really cool, like the DPDT and you know, that location right there in case you're running a wireless system. And that's a pretty cool little strap, the Wildcat fur against the Honduran. That always looks really good. But get it back together. I don't really want to try. I don't have any strings. I've got some scrapper strings, but I don't want to try to rush that just to put strings on it because it's not ready for strings. And also, if I rush it, I might run the risk of scratching that headstock. So I will end the video here after we do a weight analysis. But otherwise, I think I've tried to cover enough of the information in the build, at least to present it and what some of your options are. But and they're kind of limited because the thing is, if you start deviating from historical too much, you'll lose the guitar. But you definitely can you can make some changes. I think I can get these off that actually improve the design. This one's a little bit tight. Let me pause and I'm going to get that one off without damaging anything, and then we'll go from there. Okay, let's see what it looks like with the gold hardware. I mean the gold knobs. It's pretty nice. I don't really think you could go wrong with the black or the gold, and especially go with the gold if you went with the white, you know, pickup rings or the parchment pickup rings and the parchment output jack plate. Very cool little guitar. Uh-oh. I need to try to get this fretboard captured a little bit for my images. And that should be a fairly nice image right there. Okay, I appreciate you guys being so patient with me because I'm trying to capture some of these images, as I say, for my records, because after this guitar sells and it's gone, I forget things like that, whether I put that plate on there or whether I put the Telecaster plate on. So let's do some weight analysis. Let me pause. Okay, the only thing we're missing is the three-way selector. Otherwise, this is pretty much a complete harness, and the wiring, missing a little bit of the wiring, but this will get us started. I'll start out in pounds first. Okay, let's get the cover. We'll just set the cover right there. And then at a minimum, we'll get the three-way selector switch. So before the pickups, and these, in case I forget, these are like a 58 Replica Alnico 2s. So they're very close to what the weight would be. A set of Elixir strings and the box, since we don't have a few things like the truss cover. So we're splitting hairs here, but 5.73 pounds, 5.730 pounds. Oh, my bad. 2,600 grams. Okay. 5.73 pounds. 5.7. It's going to change a little bit. 30. Let's just put a pick up there. Put it on an angle so it doesn't fall in. Set of strings. Should be fairly close. Wow. Right at 6.502 pounds. So it's a 6.5 pound guitar. And that's amazing. 2,949 grams. And that's pretty much the guitar. If you spray much more lacquer, that's going to add weight to it. But for the most part, it's a 6.5 pound guitar. And what would that feel like? That'd actually feel incredible. Because the cool thing about it is it wouldn't feel too light, but it would definitely be considerably lighter than obviously most guitars that are solid and that big. Because where I'm going with this the Flying V, like the Explorer, they're fairly large footprints, and if you get the thicker that body gets, the weight is just exponential that it starts adding to it. And that might be some of the reasoning why they made those guitars 1.5 inch thick or 1 9/16 of an inch thick. See, this guitar is 2 inches thick, which is the same as the outer perimeter of your Les Paul. So if I can do that without knocking it off. Something fell. Oh, yeah, let me take this off. And then we'll briefly talk about this wiring access, and then I'll be able to end the video. But the cool thing about this access is I wouldn't recommend doing the wiring harness in the body, but if you had to do some work to it or testing, it's fairly accessible to all three potentiometers, and then even the rear DP/DT switch. So anyway, if you were like installing different pickups, it would be very easy to access the neck potentiometer and the bridge potentiometer to make changes. So let me pause, put the cover on, and then I'll figure out how to get out of this video. Okay, the only thing I haven't covered in this video series is the dimensions. The back of this guitar is 5/16 of an inch thick, so substantial thickness there for tone and for strength. And the entire top is a 1/2 inch thick, other than wherever it was relieved for a certain machine work. So, and the sides, they vary, because up here, it's a good, I think 7/8 of an inch thick, if not an inch thick, and then it goes down and it gets thinner. These sidewall legs back here, they're 5/16 of an inch thick as well. So all in all, that's what I meant by, is this a hollow body? Not really. This would be considered a chambered guitar. If this were a hollow body, where the top was, I don't know, like an 1/8 inch thick on average, and the back and the sides were, basically 3/32 of an inch, this thing probably would weigh 5 pounds. So the fact that it weighs 6.5 pounds loaded up, it feels like a chambered guitar. So I think from here on out, I'll call it a hollow body chambered, but it's kind of a hybrid. But also, the only thing I didn't clarify, and well, because there was no reason to, uh, or we just haven't gotten there yet, but you can see as far as the machine where it goes, and I can't put that pickup in because it'll just fall through. But I've got these machined deep enough that there's plenty of room for movement in the event you changed pickups in the future. You're not going to have to do any machine work or anything like that. And the nickel is really, really beautiful. I'll lean that over a little bit since that one. But I hate I don't have a pickup ring, but the nickel's really pretty. And the only thing that would probably look better than nickel would probably be gold. The gold would be incredible in this guitar. Even the gold hardware, gold pickup covers, gold, uh, everything gold. And then possibly maybe do all that gold and then do the black knobs. I mean, the sky's the limit with a little design like this. And the cool thing about it is you just really can't go wrong with a Flying V design. I've got this mocked up for the last picture, so bear with me for a second. But you really can't go wrong with the Flying V because it's obviously considered a rock and roll guitar. So if you ran it with the open covers and with zebras, it's a good looking pickup. I mean, a good looking guitar in that respect. Let me check this out. 54 minutes. I just can't get away from, or maybe that's 56 minutes. I just can't get away from these hour-long videos. I appreciate you guys dropping in. I hope you have a great Christmas, and I apologize if I wasted anyone's time, but I really wanted to capture a lot of these images and whatnot, because when these guitars ship, they're gone forever, and you never see them again. So on that note, I'll let you guys go, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.